There seems to be a single question that most people are asking. How can Deku actually defeat Shigaraki? Because he's only at 45 based on our knowledge right now, and Shigaraki is 100%, and he has a whole new final form. And while Deku is nowhere near mastering One for All, nor all the quirks within it, and has yet to use the second user's quirk a single time. There's so many different things against Deku that Shigaraki should be able to just destroy immediately. But there is one person who gives us the true answer as to how Deku can and will defeat Shigaraki. Mirio showing his booty is actually the key to defeating Shigaraki, and his name is Mirio. What if Horikoshi is trying to say that in order to beat this villain, you have to... Let's talk about it. Hey, Wise. So the question that I asked myself after reading this chapter a couple of times and showing how to see what my perception is when it comes to Mirio in this chapter is, how do you defeat a villain when everything you do will never get the results you desire? I think that's a very good representation of Mirio, because frankly, in this chapter, Mirio does everything that he possibly can, but everything isn't enough. In fact, it's not even close to enough. Mirio is Mr. Invincible, and I think that's why I love this chapter, because he is Mr. Invincible. He is somebody who, if the whole world was under explosion from a nuclear war bomb, Mirio would be the only one that can survive, but he wouldn't be the person that's able to stop the bomb. And the same thing is true when it comes to Shigaraki. Mirio is the only person who will not lose in a fight against Shigaraki, because he is somebody you cannot hurt, but he's also somebody who is not strong enough to hurt or damage this immovable object, this indestructible object nearly. He can't physically do anything to Shigaraki. And it's important because understanding that, he despairs. He falls into doubt. He falls into this belief that he is not worthy, that he is useless, in fact, when it comes to doing anything. Because if you remember, a few chapters ago, he made a decision, he made a vow that he will not allow anybody to get harmed until Deku gets here. But guess what happened? Bakugo died. Tamaki Yamajiki, Nejire Hado, Miracle are getting destroyed, getting demolished by this fully powered apex final form of Shigaraki. And Mirio, who made this vow just a few minutes ago, just a few chapters ago, can do nothing but watch as his peers, as his fellow heroes are getting destroyed and demolished, while at the same time not having the power at all to be able to stop or prevent Shigaraki from doing any of that. But then there was an interesting part of this chapter that I want you all to go over with me. It's the part of the chapter where Mirio comes to this realization that he is useless. And he asks a simple question. Is it really how it all ends, Sir Night-Eye? Going back to before Sir Night-Eye died on his deathbed, when Sir Night-Eye smiled at Mirio after looking at his future and realizing, or apparently seeing, that he will become a finer hero than anyone else. What if it's that Sir Night-Eye actually did not see a favorable future for Mirio, and instead what he saw was a very gruesome, right? A very destructive, a very not so happily ever after for Mirio, and he saw him dying. What if in fact the smile that he had on his face was the hope that Mirio would be able to change his own fate through sheer will alone, similar to Deku? Because remember, before Deku changed the fate of his inevitable fate that Sir Night-Eye foresaw, Sir Night-Eye has been 100% accurate in almost every prediction that he's had. So because he saw a first-hand glimpse of somebody who was able to change the fate of his own visions, his own predictions, he believes that maybe Mirio will be able to do the same thing because he has strong will and he has a strong determination. Something that is quite similar to Deku. Maybe that's the case. And this is the reality that they saw. A reality in which all of this is going on and Mirio ends up dying. Or Mirio becomes less of a hero because of the psychological trauma that he is going through in this war. But an opportunity came. And this is where everything changes, and this is where Mirio expresses through his actions how in fact Shigaraki can and will be defeated by not only Deku, but maybe even Mirio as well. An opportunity arose when Mandalay sent her telepath to the only two remaining heroes standing, Mirio and Best Jeanist. And when Best Jeanist and Mirio hears that all they need to do is stall Shigaraki or hold Shigaraki for 2 seconds, in reality, it's a ridiculous long time because Shigaraki is right in front of them and he's faster than all of them. He's as fast as All Might in his prime, maybe even faster with his new form. He's stronger, so that means that the moment he touches you, you're done. How is this going to happen? How are they going to be able to stop Shigaraki for 2 seconds? And something happens to Mirio. A decision. An epiphany. While being in despair, while believing that it's impossible, he decides to show Shiggy his booty. To show off the cakes. Cake master. And I know that sounds hilarious and it sounds funny. And many people may think that that action alone was ridiculous of Mirio. It makes sense. It goes back to the question that I was asking earlier. How do you defeat a villain when everything you do will never get the results you desire? And Mirio found the answer, unintentionally maybe, but he found the exact answer to how to defeat Shigaraki. This villain, the villain of villains, the chaotic villains, all of this, it makes sense. So what did he do? What did Mirio do, chat? He stopped looking at Shigaraki as a villain. Or rather, his actions changed from the perception of a battle to a perception of humor. Because if you remember, before he showed his booty, before he twerked for the gram, before he did that, he had a flashback, a thought in his head on the philosophies that he has adopted in himself from 𝚲𝚘𝚙𝚢𝚛, which is what? Mirio, keep smiling. A society without cheer and humor will not have a bright future. So the philosophy that he had that made him show his cakes was based on humor, was based on the bright future that he sees or that he desires, using humor, using laughter, using positivity instead of destruction, instead of anger, instead of harm. If you remember, at the end of the overhaul arc, when Eri went back to UA and Mirio was in that bush, he said a few things that was interesting. He saw Eri walking with some of the Class A or some of the UA students and said specifically that he wants to try to make her smile. He wants to make her day. He wants to make her feel good, happy, because of all the trauma that she went through in her entire life, that she was still not over. She wasn't smiling, remember? She wasn't smiling. It was hard for her to smile. It was good. And he said that he is going to try to make her smile. So he hid himself in the bushes and he showed his cakes. He twerked for the gram to make a 7-year-old. Okay, that's kind of weird, but he did what he did because he wanted to put a smile on a young kid's face. He wanted to be able to lighten the mood, to brighten the mood, to show Eri that it's okay to have fun. That yes, you've been through so much in your life, but at the end of the day, as long as we have laughter, as long as we have smiles, there will always be a brighter future ahead. And he did the same thing in the heat of the moment, mind you, to Shigaraki. Subconsciously, again, he decided that he can't beat him with power. He can't beat him with technique. He can't beat him with anything. So let's try to beat him. Let's slow him down with joy, with laughter, with a bright future. So how does this make sense? Why does him shaking his booty mean that Deku's going to be able to beat him? It's the philosophy behind that. Maybe Horikoshi is trying to tell us something. Maybe Horikoshi understands the same thing that we understand, which is that Deku, there's no way that Deku could actually be able to beat Shigaraki because he's only at 45 based on our knowledge right now, and Shigaraki is 100%, and he has a whole new final form, and Deku can't even master all of his quirks, and there's so many different things against Deku that Shigaraki should be able to just destroy immediately. What if Horikoshi is trying to say that in order to beat this villain, you have to look at him as a human? In order to defeat Shigaraki, you have to come at him as what he is, which is a human. He's not a villain. He's not as evil. He's done some evil things. But guess what? At the end of the day, in the core of his core, he's still a 5-year-old little boy who went through so much trauma. He's still a human, guys. He's still a human. Now, it's consistent with Deku's character because of one character, and that's Aoyama. Aoyama has showed himself to be the UA traitor. He's revealed himself to be the UA traitor. And the first thing that Deku did was feel very bad for the reality that he is a UA traitor, that he got manipulated, but more importantly, that he himself was in despair for what he did. But Deku didn't look at him as the traitor. Look at him as somebody who was vulnerable, somebody who went through so much. I would have punched Aoyama in the face, but Deku didn't. Deku understood that the difference between a hero and a villain, the difference between somebody who does something good and somebody who does something bad, it's one day. It's one decision. It's a vulnerable moment. It's the absence or the presence of somebody who can help them, who can lend a helping hand, who can reach out and grab that person and tell them that it is okay because I am here. A hero. And Shigaraki is the same situation as Aoyama. And with Shigaraki, he knew no better. He did what he did, but he didn't know. His quirk activated. He was treated poorly. All of this stuff was going on. And then he got manipulated by All For One for the next 15 years of his life. And now he's in a situation in which he's suppressing his vulnerabilities that is called Tinko. And the only person that can actually save him is Deku. The only person that can actually save this villain is someone who can look at him for what he is, which is a boy. He's a human. Chat. He is a human. So how does Deku beat Shigaraki? Simple. He has to open up the barriers, open up the shell that Shigaraki is having within himself to bring out the Tinko and have conversations with Tinko, which will be very difficult because the battle's going to be between Tinko, Shiggy, and All For One. And whoever can win that battle can win the war of Shigaraki's body and save the planet. And Deku will become the greatest hero in the world by bringing Tinko out and saving him.